Okay, we should be connected now. Day 2 coming at you. If you don't have a name attached, it says guest. I would just hit the 3 dots next to your name and click rename, just so we give you credit for your points. Because the general link to join just gives you that generic guest name. And we don't want that. I see a few of you in the list. All right. Good. So what was your biggest takeaway from day 1? For those who were on last night, not last night, it was yesterday afternoon. Biggest takeaway, maybe biggest myth that we helped you fix. We're going to go into the other myths today that I shared on the upfront on the last call, and blast away a few of those as well. So use the chat. Carbs are not evil. Yes, Denise. As long as calories are accounted for and your proteins at a high enough amount, you can have plenty of carbs and lose weight all the same. Karen, realize you're not eating enough. That's a common problem, especially the right foods. Jacqueline says metabolism is not an old thing. So age related, yeah, we're going to go into that in depth today with research to back it. Awesome. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And if you weren't here yesterday, don't worry, we'll get you caught up. And the replays are going out as we speak, but I'll kind of summarize them all at the end as well. Sustainability is important, says Ray. Yeah, absolutely. Without that, you can't stick to it. And then any results you get from extremes never stick around. So we appreciate you guys coming. There's always the most amount of people on the first call. And then with anything in life, it sort of trickles down as we go. So you're the true committed people on this call. I have faith that all of you are going to get great results simply for being committed. That's it. All right, so we'll pop this open, full screen, quick thumbs up if you can see this. I would challenge you to put yourself on video as well so that I can see your faces and get your questions answered as well. Always higher participation when you're on video. So the promise today is the 1-2 punch to pump up your metabolism. We certainly are going to get into that. But just from the first call yesterday, we went into a couple myths. One is that cardio burns fat alone. And you saw some of the problems with that if you're on the call, right? Your body adapts to it quickly. It also ramps up hunger and appetite afterwards. So you negate a lot of the calories burned from it. Not to say it's not beneficial. It is. But it doesn't do the heavy lifting when it comes to weight loss. And the other one was carbs are the cause of fat gain. And that's not true. You'll have the odd guru say it's true, but you could eat nothing but fats and proteins. And if you're eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, you will gain weight rapidly. Now, if you get your calories in check and you eat enough protein, you can have 200 plus grams of carbs a day and still lose weight. So hopefully I won you over on those two. Type B in the chat if that was the one that you were kind of struggling with before, or C if that was the cardio one, that you believe cardio was the answer to all your problems and you were just going to run off the weight. So today we're going to go into metabolism and why it doesn't actually slow down with age, especially if you do a few things about it. And the fact that men don't have better genes for fat loss, although it looks that way, especially early on the diet. Okay, so we've got some people popping in here. Sorry, I'll just add them. It's a waiting room thing. Okay, so what makes up your metabolism? First off, 3 components. All of these you can change to some degree. Some take longer though. So the one you have the most control over is the AEE. So that's your daily exercise. More importantly, how you move the other 23 hours of the day, not just the gym workouts, right? So that accounts for 10 to 30% how much you burn each day. TEF is the next one, and we'll talk about how to maximize your TEF burn. That's just how much calories your body burns to digest the food you eat, okay? And then lastly, the biggest component, which is largely fixed, at least today, is your resting metabolism. So we'll talk about how to increase your resting metabolism over time, but that basically means your size, age to a lesser extent, gender to an even lesser extent, fat-free mass like muscle, and then fat mass. It all takes calories to sustain. All right. Moving on. So metabolism in 30 seconds. So a larger body requires more calories to maintain. Hopefully you guys understand that. So in fact, if you're a bigger body, you have a faster metabolism because someone that's 280 pounds requires a lot more calories to maintain their weight than someone who's 150 pounds. Simple math.
It looks like sawdust.
Yeah, we'll just keep you guys muted just so it doesn't record your screen. Gender differences. So see how small this is? Let me make this bigger. We have a man and women of the same weight, same activity levels, the difference in calorie burn, roughly 60 calories. That's it, right? So there's more nuances here we'll get into, but essentially that makes very little difference from a fat loss perspective. If we have a 230-pound woman and a 230-pound man, they go in the same amount of calories, they lose about the same rate of fat loss, but it looks like more weight loss for a man, and I'll talk about that in a sec. Muscle matters. So the more fat-free mass, bigger your bones, the more muscle you have. Well, even a bigger body has bigger organs and they require calories. That takes more calories to maintain. Okay, so that's a little hint at what's some foreshadowing to come, is not to overlook that piece. And then your organs require calories too. Like your brain runs on glucose. You may have seen that quote. I think it was Ryan Gosling in his more recent, I think he's a stunt driver or so. Anyway, it's a funny quote. It was making the rounds. It's very true. Your body and your brain and your organs do burn calories just to sustain life, right? So that's factored into your BMR. Now, what about age? It naturally decreases over time, but for reasons that are within your control. Hardly anything changes until about age 60, then it gradually goes down naturally. So there's this massive research study, I think 2021, that kind of smashed this belief for good, is that from 20 to 60 years old, metabolic rate is largely the same at rest. Okay. So what's the slowdown here? What gives, right? You know, after age 60, it might drop 1% a year. Very little difference day to day. What's actually happening is we swap our good activity levels in our sports and our strength training for sitting on the couch, you know, picking Dorito dust out of our belly buttons, right? Muscle mass is the main factor here, and it declines at a more rapid rate as you get older unless you do something about it. So something about it is fairly straightforward. Didn't mean to zoom in on that. It's simply the 1-2 punch of eat more protein and lift weights. Okay, so if you get nothing from this, I would screenshot this slide because this is going to be your biggest determinant to preserving muscle mass, preserving metabolism, and aging gracefully. Okay. So you generally require a bit more protein as you get older to trigger something called protein synthesis, which is basically the primary tool your body uses to maintain, preserve, build muscle. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense so far. Type of 1 in the chat. If eat more protein, lift weights is sticking with you. Love it. Got lots of ones. Preaching to the choir here. Beautiful. Okay, so let's get a little bit more in depth into the 1-2 punch, which I've already kind of hinted at what they are. But number 1 is prioritizing protein. And why that is, when I talked about your metabolism earlier, Irene, you're drawing on the screen. All good. I think you can undo that somehow. Is your TEF, which accounts for 10-ish% of your total daily calorie burn each day. But you can maximize your TEF by eating more protein. Why is that? Well, as much as 30% of the calories from protein don't count. Because think of the meat sweats, Brazilian barbecue. You go, you eat a big piece of steak. Your body has to work very hard to break that down into its base ingredients, amino acids. Whereas you have some processed sugars, a drink, it's already pre-processed. You're absorbing the majority of those calories. Fat is even worse, 0 to 3%. Like every gram of fat you consume likely gets stored. Okay, makes sense? Type a yes in the chat if this is working for you. I'm not going over your head. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. So part 2 is why muscle matters for metabolism. And there's a number of reasons, but primarily it's because you have a higher resting metabolism, the more muscle you have, right? You can think of the gym buff guy versus someone of equal weight who sits on the couch and has a lot of body fat. They're the same weight, but the gym rat burns more calories at rest. Muscle burns more calories than fat, gram for gram. It's not a huge difference, but over time, if you replace 20 pounds of fat with 20 pounds of muscle, that can make a huge difference day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. Okay. It's also a bit of a storage sink for carbohydrates. The more you spill over your carbs, you have more places to store it before it turns or converts to body fat. Okay, so shortcuts. We always want to get into those because people ask. And for the most part, there isn't many. Like you'll see these online, these spicy foods, these weird gummies that are supposed to increase metabolism, even like cold exposure, hot exposure, health benefits to both. But from a metabolism boosting perspective, the science just isn't there. Even coffee, caffeine, benefits, lots of health benefits, an acute benefit in terms of a little bit more metabolism burn, but it's not a sustained one, right? So most things that claim to boost metabolism in pill form, at least ones that are legal and not harmful for you, aren't very beneficial. Okay, I'll get into one that is though shortly here. Yeah, so I forgot to mention this. Acute versus sustained increase in metabolism, like you get a little bit of a spike from spicy foods. It's temporary. It's not going to make a big difference day to day, week to week, month to month, which, cutting 100 calories from your meal plan day to day will consistently drop body fat, whereas these won't. Make sense? Hopefully. Good. One that has, though, I was surprised by this when I dug into the research, was fish oil. So you can get this from food. It's hard to achieve the amounts necessary to see true benefits. So supplementing with high-dosed fish oils, increased resting metabolism by 14%, sustained, and a bit more like post-exercise calorie burn, 10%. That's enough to make a difference to say, well, maybe it's worth experimenting. Make sense? Who's already using fish oil? I'd be curious. It's fairly widespread. It was in vogue for a while, and then it kind of fell out of favor. We've got quite a few who use it. Okay. Yeah, you want to refrigerate the capsules so they can go rancid and lead to burps. That's no fun. But good. Yeah, it's fairly inexpensive. I think even Costco carries like a high-dosed version of it. One a day. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. You guys are ahead of the game. I've always seen it for other things, joint health, omega-3s, but from a metabolism perspective, might be worth a shot. Any little bit adds up, right? All right. Okay, so I would screenshot this slide because this is really what this day is all about, is the compound interest effect of boosting metabolism. So yes, we want to maximize our muscle mass. That's not going to show much return like in the next month, but a year from now, if you've gained 10 pounds of lean body mass, muscle, you will burn more calories at rest, a fairly significant amount compared to today. Eat higher protein for the higher thermic effect, but also because it's going to support building muscle. Get your quality sleep, because when you don't, you probably realize you move less, you crave more of the wrong foods, and your willpower is already drained to start the day, right? So that it's kind of more the cascade effect of what sleep impacts your behaviors. Fish oil, green tea. So I didn't mention the green tea, but that's potentially a benefit as well, marginally. And then spend more time in what we call maintenance calories. If you're dieting chronically all the time, you're eventually going to cut into your muscle mass. And that's going to be a negative scenario in the long run. So once you get close to your goal weight, you want to spend majority of the year, or at least good chunks of it, in a surplus or maintenance calories to give your body a chance to build muscle, reset your hormones, and so on. Okay. And then lastly is the right amount of exercise, and that varies by individual, but you can overdo it, but you can also, and more commonly, underdo it, not get enough so that you're relying too much on cutting calories to try to lose weight. And it can be very difficult to do in the long haul. Okay. So what are these 6 are you gonna implement ASAP? Drop the number that corresponds in the chat. Remember, you get points in the prize draw for participation. So there you go. We got 3, we got 6. Good. I like it. Fish oil is going to be implemented here by the looks of it. 6, more fish. Beautiful. We got a 1. Finally, someone prioritizing sleep. I like that. Merely, the Goldilocks rule is like the right amount of exercise for you. Too many people, especially that are avid fitness people, overdo it. They do boot camps every day. They go for runs at night, and then their body breaks down. They crave too much foods. They overeat, and they don't get the benefits of exercise. The Goldilocks rule for most is enough strength training to preserve muscle, 3 times a week, lifting weights in a deliberate way with proper rest periods, walking 8 to 10,000 steps a day. You do those 2 things, you pretty much cover all your bases. Now, you can do a little bit of higher intensity cardio I'll talk about tomorrow for your heart health and for living longer, but it's not a necessity either. Yeah, that's usually a commonplace, Marilee, is less is more works well, especially as we get older. Especially in certain stages of life. What worked for us earlier, doing spin circuit workouts every day, we just end up breaking down, not getting the benefits. Work smarter, not harder is absolutely the game. Okay, awesome. Good list, guys. Making sure you're awake here. Day 2 homework. We're already at that point, and then we got a few other housekeeping items. So I'm going to drop this in the chat. Oh, I can drop that in the chat. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so for completing that, just trying to send to people in the waiting room. There it is. Okay, so click through to that. You get 5 points again in the grand prize draw for that. But I do want to call on someone that hasn't been asked ahead of time, but Martha, are you there? Just since you recently hit your goal, I'd love to get a few words of wisdom from you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
Hi.
So yeah, maybe just, I know you're fresh back from your trip, but where were you before you started? If you have to go back to April, like what were you skeptical of? What was the challenge with your typical approach to weight loss, and what's kind of been different with us?
A lot of the things that you covered today, I had been a pretty avid Orange Theory person. So like that high intensity training, typically between 3 and 5 days a week. No cap or protein, like calorie and protein targets set with that. Literally just the HIIT stuff. No water targets, no step targets, nothing else except that piece. Trying to balance the food myself, falling into that kind of lazy sit in front of the TV at night and snack. And it just progressively got worse. I would diet for a while and really cut back the calories. But as soon as I started eating normally, introducing any carb, I put all the weight back on and more consistently. So, I mean, that's sort of what drew me to you. And then I, started seeing pictures of myself that I wasn't happy with. And I knew I had to make a change, and a change for me that was sustainable, because the others weren't sustainable. And this for me has just been a whole lifestyle change that I know I can manage forever. So, for those that don't know, I started out at 215 pounds last April, and I hit my target maybe 3 weeks ago and at a little more. So I'm at like 57 pounds down, but so much stronger, easily hitting my cap every day consistently, and it's not hard to do once you figure out things that work. It's always the protein that's the challenge, not the calorie piece.
Yeah.
But it's important. I mean, my target seems high, but that was the biggest, aside from the other things consistently, not understanding how much protein to get and how to get it. That was my biggest challenge. I definitely was not getting enough protein before I started this. And that was a huge change for me and a positive one, obviously, with the success that I'm having.
That's awesome. Yeah, 57 pounds and we're not even a year yet. So kudos to you, obviously, for showing up and doing the work. But was there any like surprising benefits that you sort of didn't even think of or factor in?
Well, I mean, for me, because I am in menopause, I think it's helped with my sleep quality, definitely has improved immensely. I was waking up for an hour or two every night before I started working with CalFit. Even like hot flashes and night sweats, all of those have decreased significantly. And I can only think it's a direct relation to probably the exercise, the water intake, the proper foods and proteins have made a huge difference in my quality of life overall, I think.
Huge. Yeah, and you kind of stole some of my thunder from tomorrow with how this benefits menopause, that stage of life. Like we don't realize there is some variables that we control that can make a huge difference. Like the basics work best. Now, some people still need hormone replacement therapy, but more often than not, we find that's one of the residual surprising benefits is how much better we sleep, feel day to day. So preach. I love it. Thanks for sharing, Martha.
Yeah, no problem.
Good stuff. So that comes to the end of today's call. I think we did it with time to spare. So if you have any questions, Q&A, I would love for you to, there's a couple that I missed in the chat. You could unmute yourself, but throw it in the chat is fine too. We are offering a 10-day test drive if you know a client in the program currently. So I'll link that in the chat. Other than that, let's see. Particular fish oil you can recommend. Yeah, Crystal, there is that potential risk factor, although brands have come a long way in terms of mercury in fish oil products. So the smaller the fish, the better generally. And I think the one that's double dosed at Costco, correct me if I'm wrong, is like sardines or something. So I haven't tested the product myself, but I would say that would probably be a pretty safe bet. Experiment with. Yeah, reach out after I can get you the actual brand. It's escaping me right now, but all right. Karen says Martha's an inspiration. There you go. Awesome.
Mitch, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Diane.
I'm just listening to this. I'm wondering if you can exercise too much. Like I do it 7 days a week. Is that too much? I don't think it is, but
It depends on the intensity, duration, and so on. Like for you, I know what you're doing. I think it's, you're balancing it okay. If you were starting to feel chronically sore joints, your sleep was disrupted, and you're constantly hungry, then sure, the intensity of the workout might have to be dialed back. But I think you're striking the right balance, right? You don't feel those side effects. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oftentimes, if someone's like heavy strength training every day and then doing high intensity, like the Orange Theory, for example, some people that are 20s that have a low stress life, they can probably, do 3-4 of those boot camps a week and be okay. But for any of us mere mortals that have kids and careers and pushing 40, 50, 60, no longer really makes sense. Right? It might be something you sprinkle in once a week and do more deliberate strength training that you can recover from. That's less intense in terms of that. But yeah, in your case, Dan, I think you're doing it right. There is still a benefit to mixing it up here and there. Okay. Yeah, Jacqueline mentions fish oil needs to be kept cold. So I put, and out of light too. So I put the container in the fridge because if they're soft gel caps to the touch, they get rancid in the pantry. So that's a good footnote as well. Okay, anyone else have a question on today? Don't miss day 3 tomorrow, by the way. We're gonna get into a hack that I swear by for increasing daily calorie burn. So this will be more, today's call is more of the long-term stuff, the compound interest. Tomorrow we'll get into the shiny objects that might make a difference immediately. As soon as tomorrow, you could start implementing and see a real measurable difference. So back at noon, going once, twice.
Mitch?
Yeah.
Sorry,
for
silly
it.
question, but just wondering, has heritage got anything to do with weight, losing weight?
Heritage, oh yeah, like background, yeah. Not really.
Okay, because
Minor
I
differences.
got Italian and Irish, and I think the Italian side is kind of big.
Yeah, I mean, it's more their diet that influences that than
Yeah.
any genetic component, I think. They actually have higher testosterone levels in Ireland because there's more boron in the soil, but that's not relevant to you. So generally speaking, no. And certainly some are more prone to fat gain in certain areas or muscle gain. Actually, there's benefits too there, but for the vast majority of us, when we follow a plan like this, where we get our calories in check and we strength train and walk, we all can get the best version of ourselves, right? So you never want to have too many limiting beliefs that hold you back from doing the best you can, right? Awesome. Got Scott on the job site right now. Nice. Okay. I love it. Okay. Yeah, we've got a question about creatine. We'll save that for tomorrow. So I want to make sure people and I can come back with a proper response to that, but we'll leave it there. All right, guys. So yeah, finish the homework. That'll help you implement what you learned today. It's always smart to actually put things down on paper and not just passively consume them, as you're more likely to take action on it. So keep it up. We're tracking those points. Viviani has the points in front of me right now. So keep doing what you need to do to get in the running for those top 3 prizes I talked about off the top. And we'll be back tomorrow. Cheers.
Thanks, Mitch.
See you guys.